Angela Lee Duckworth is an American academic, psychologist, and popular science author. She is the Christopher H. Brown Distinguished Professor of Psychology at the University of Pennsylvania, where she studies grit and self-control. She is also the founder and CEO of Character Lab, a not-for-profit whose mission is to advance the science and practice of character development. So where I wanted to focus on is where she studies grit and self-control. And so she had a TED Talk where she talked about...
Quick question. Do you think you're, from a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being like really good self-control, where do you think you are with like
a 7?
Do you think it's the same as your grit?
No.
What's your grit then?
Maybe like it depends on how much I want it. But let's take a look at this first, and then we'll discuss.
When I was 27 years old, I left a very demanding job in management consulting for a job that was even more demanding, teaching. I went to teach 7th graders math in the New York City public schools. And like any teacher, I made quizzes and tests, I gave out homework assignments. When the work came back, I calculated grades. What struck me was that IQ was not the only difference between my best and my worst students. Some of my strongest performers did not have stratospheric IQ scores. Some of my smartest kids weren't doing so well. And that got me thinking. The kinds of things you need to learn in 7th grade math, sure, they're hard. Ratios, decimals, the area of a parallelogram. But these concepts are not impossible. And I was firmly convinced that every one of my students could learn the material if they worked hard and long enough. After several more years of teaching, I came to the conclusion that what we need in education is a much better understanding of students and learning from a motivational perspective, from a psychological perspective. In education, the one thing we know how to measure best is IQ. But what if doing well in school and in life depends on much more than your ability to learn quickly and easily? So I left the classroom and I went to graduate school to become a psychologist. I started studying kids and adults in all kinds of super challenging settings. And in every study, my question was, who is successful here and why? My research team and I went to West Point Military Academy. We tried to predict which cadets would stay in military training and which would drop out. We went to the National Spelling Bee and tried to predict which children would advance farthest in competition. We studied rookie teachers working in really tough neighborhoods, asking which teachers are still going to be here in teaching by the end of the school year. And of those, who will be the most effective at improving learning outcomes for their students? We partnered with private companies asking which of these salespeople is going to keep their jobs and who's going to earn the most money. In all those very different contexts, one characteristic emerged as a significant predictor of success. And it wasn't social intelligence, it wasn't good looks, physical health, and it wasn't IQ. It was grit. Grit is passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. Grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking with your future, day in, day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to make that future a reality. Grit is living life like it's a marathon, not a sprint. A few years ago, I started studying grit in the Chicago public schools. I asked thousands of high school juniors to take grit questionnaires, and then waited around more than a year to see who would graduate. Turns out that grittier kids were significantly more likely to graduate, even when I matched them on every characteristic I could measure, things like family income, standardized achievement test scores, even how safe kids felt when they were at school. So it's not just at West Point or the National Spelling Bee that grit matters, it's also in school, especially for kids at risk for dropping out. To me, the most shocking thing about grit is how little we know, how little science knows about building it. Every day, parents and teachers ask me, how do I build grit in kids? What do I do to teach kids a solid work ethic? How do I keep them motivated for the long run? The honest answer is, I don't know. What I do know is that talent doesn't make you gritty. Our data show very clearly that there are many talented individuals who simply do not follow through on their commitments. In fact, in our data, grit is usually unrelated or even inversely related to measures of talent.
Huh.
Wait, grit is unrelated or inversely related to talent.
Yeah, isn't that
So if
interesting?
you're very talented, you're like lazy.
Well,
I
right.
give it a try.
Well, I think one of the great places to look at that is like sports, like the NBA. Like you see a lot of like really talented players like go away really quickly because like they didn't take the game that seriously, even though like they had all of the things for it, like the physicality and the athleticism. And then you have players like Kobe Bryant or LeBron or Michael Jordan who have the talent, but also have the grit to like keep like practicing and like to like get up to the top.
Yeah.
But I think it's also interesting what she said, like, it doesn't matter where you're at. Like, you can be in school or you can be in sales or you can be at West Point. There's one indicator that's best to indicate whether you're going to be successful or not. And it's not IQ, it's not looks, it's grit. Mm-hmm. And then she said...
And then she says, we don't know how to develop that characteristic.
Right, but then I think
Perseverance? Is that the same
she
thing?
said perseverance and passion. I think you need probably the passions to keep the perseverance going. But also...
So it's like...
But she said it's...
motivation and discipline?
Yeah, it's not treating things like a sprint. It's treating things like a marathon.
It's a turtle.
Right, like you're
the
expecting to work on it for a long time. And I think that's actually the best indicators of success. Like when I read Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, which observes a lot of really successful people, one of the things I noticed was that a lot of these people were just going at it for a long time. Like Steve Jobs was working on Pixar for years and sunk like 60 million in it total by the time
Something came
by
out
the time
that was
Toy
like-
Story came out.
Yeah, that was like, wow.
Right.
we
And
did
then
it.
he, the passion and the perseverance that he had to endure, of like having to like run the company and continually like losing money every year and having to reinvest in it. It paid off because I think he had a long-term vision for Pixar. Even if he didn't realize it yet, he knew that he was in it for the long haul. And that's why he kept reinvesting in it rather than, because he got offers from Microsoft to buy it. And
But he wouldn't have made that deal if he didn't there was no way he was going to let that one go.
no, exactly.
I
And
think
that's
he
the
was
only
very much
company he invested in.
Like, this is
He
it.
didn't, or at least that I know of. I don't know if he had a lot of other smaller projects, but
Have you ever watched the movie Howard the Duck?
no. I know, yeah, the George Lucas movie.
I wonder if he regrets making that movie.
I don't know. George Lucas says he made $4 billion from Star Wars, plus whatever he made from the actual movie. Anyways, let's keep going.
Okay.
So far, the best
not
idea
done.
I've heard about building grit in kids is something called growth mindset. This is an idea developed at Stanford University by Carol Dweck, and it is the belief that the ability to learn is not fixed, that it can change with your effort. Dr. Dweck has shown that when kids read and learn about the brain and how it changes and grows in response to challenge, they're much more likely to persevere when they fail because they don't believe that failure is a permanent condition. So growth mindset is a great idea for building grit, but we need more.
Well, I say you, and I heard other people, you either win or you learn.
Yeah, so I think people think
Like, you just need to
the
practice. That's what I
success
tell my kids.
of your growth is winning. But it's like, no, the success of your growth is growing.
Yeah. Like, but some people like they want to try something. It's like, how long do you try it? And then you
Right.
make that goal, right? And it's like, oh, I can't do it. It's like, but then it's like, that's why I say to my kids, like, oh, practice it and you'll get good at it. It doesn't matter if you suck at it now, or who knows if you get really good at it or mediocre good.
Right.
But you've got to keep practicing to be able to.
Yeah, I think
and you can learn if you actually make mistakes or whatever. But
I think the fallacy is, in order for me to be successful, I have to be good at it from the beginning. And what she's saying is you need to exit that mindset because that doesn't allow for failure.
Yeah, and it's always an experiment first.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. It's people think like, that's why I say the winning and losing. They feel like, oh, if I didn't do it like that, then I lost.
Yes.
And it's like, there's no losing. It's
Yeah.
just.
That's like
You know,
why
like,
games like Minecraft are great. You can't really lose at Minecraft. You can die, yeah, but there's not.
Some people give up real quick.
Yeah, they don't have enough grit to keep playing that game.
Yeah, but that's why you said the passion. Okay,
Right, so let's keep
going.
yeah.
And that's where I'm going to end my remarks, because that's where we are. That's the work that stands before us. We need to take our best ideas, our strongest intuitions, and we need to test them. We need to measure whether we've been successful, and we have to be willing to fail, to be wrong, to start over again with lessons learned. In other words, we need to be gritty about getting our kids grittier. Thank you.
So there it is. I think the keys to success is to have grit. How do you have grit? Is to have a growth mindset. Like, I think the key to success is actually identifying what you want. Do you know what I mean? And then when you identify what you want, then you can kind of dictate the energy into going that way, and then the grit follows because you found, what you want should be, and would be where your passion and perseverance would grow.
Well, yeah, like that's why they have goal setting, because if you accidentally get knocked off for some reason, and you had planned it in a straight line, it helps for you to see, like, oh, it doesn't mean you have to give up on it. You just have to make a roundabout, or you just have to, like, and it keeps you focused, and it teaches kids that. But I think something that the grit helps with is not just, even if you lose sight of it, to keep moving instead of just sitting there, because one of the goals is just not to just sit there. Well,
yeah, I think the point is, it's like getting better a little bit every day is how everyone does it. It's not like you're not good at it in the beginning.
You're gonna find something where you're just like a magical,
right? And it's like drawing. It's like,
oh yeah, everyone used to suck at do
but
stick
then
figures.
You draw like 5 minutes a day. At the end of the year, that's like 1,500 minutes that you've drawn. Just 5 minutes a day, and you'll see at the end of the year, like, wow, you're significantly better. Hi everyone, hope you liked the video. Remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more.
Happy 420 wherever you are. Bye.
And if you don't have buds, we're your buds.